Hey, Bruce. How's it going?
Hey, good to be back.
Ugh. That made me sound so ungrateful to be here. Welcome, Temple of False Pod. That's us. Hello.
I was going to say, you going to start this?
I am starting it. This is how we're starting now, Bruce. It's chill, you know. We hit 1,000 downloads, and I'm living large now. Hello and welcome to Temple of the False Pod, where our decks are not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. I'm Andy.
I am Bruce.
And it's that time of season again. I say it every season. Twice a season, in fact. Deck time.
Hey!
Deck time. Temple deck tech time.
It's that time of year when we get to tell you once again another deck that we have, that one of us has put together that has Temple of the False God in it.
It does. In fact, it's funny. I was putting this deck into Archidect, which it already was, but I've made so many changes over the couple years that I've had it that I had to update it. And I realized that at some point, don't tell my co-host Bruce this, I had taken out Temple of the False God, but as you can see, I have it back in because I was like, this is absurd. I don't know why.
You're just going to have to trust me. I saw it. It is there.
Yeah.
Of course, you can also check out the list. We're going to post that in the show notes. I personally, I always enjoy the Beckett Brass deck because I love a deck that follows a good theme, and this one follows the theme, and it plays well. Like this deck, the deck has resilience, and it just keeps chugging along. I mean, I've seen a couple games where everybody has a game or two where the deck just falls flat, and you came out guns blazing, and then it just sort of went kaput. But for the most part, in case you missed it, it loops.
Yeah.
So.
In case you missed it, the deck that I'll be talking about today is my Admiral Beckett Brass deck. It's a 3/3 legendary creature human pirate for 1 blue, black, red. Other pirates you control get +1/+1. Pretty cool. At the beginning of your end step, gain control of target non-land permanent controlled by a player who is dealt combat damage by 3 or more pirates this turn. This deck tech is going to end up probably more of a deck tail because it's pretty straightforward. It's pirates, mostly excellent block, honestly.
Right.
And it's just there for the piratey goodness. There's a few cards that end up kind of powering it, but there's still a bit of theme to it.
Before we get into any of the other cards, how often does the second ability really kick in with the 3 pirates? Because it seems like I can recall the number of times. Meaning, it didn't happen that often, but am I wrong? Am I remembering this wrong?
So, this deck, I guess, short answer, probably a dozen times. I mean, I feel like I haven't really played this deck as much as, I don't know, as much as some of my other decks. This deck I had made back. It was probably during one of the Ravnica sets during the War of the Spark era.
Yeah.
My wife, I was like, I want to teach you how to play Magic. Like, it'd be such a great time to, I don't know, play when we're stuck inside or something. And I was like, so she was like, if you make me a deck, I want it to either be fairies or pirates. And I was like, well, fairies is expensive, so Pirates it is. And I, at the time, like, I was just kind of, like, buying up a lot of product from, like, just, like, the stock product. So, like, I think I had, like, an Ixalan deck builder's toolkit. So, like, I just had, like, a bunch of random Ixalan pirates anyway. So I was like, this will be great. So I found Admiral Beckett Brass, and you'll notice throughout this episode, it kind of goes two ways. One, pirates, obviously. It's like 75% of the deck. 20% of the deck is the evasion of it all to kind of get that second ability going.
Sure.
So when I had built the deck, I had kind of put it on a shelf and didn't play it for a while because I was like, this is her deck. She'll play it, and I'll play it sometimes. Now, not that she's uninterested in the game, but she definitely values the fact that I have an affinity for this hobby more than she does, which is probably good. So I've been tooling with this deck ever since, I don't know, about a year in, and it goes. It goes. There are definitely times that it goes stronger than others, but overall, it's the deck I go to if I want to just kind of like not think about it. Just play a land. If I can play a spell, I'll play it. If I've got a counter in hand, I'll hold up the mana for it, and that's about it. It's very, very straightforward. So that is the story of the deck. And let me tell you about some of the pieces I got. Obviously, I got Rogue's Passage. First and foremost, I need that evasion. Rogue's Passage, not the greatest, but it does its job when I need it to. And overall, I don't see it much. I mean, I have no way of tutoring for it. So
simply put, do you get enough colored mana in the deck so that you can cast your other spells?
Right.
Because, as long as that's happening, then there's really no downside to running Rogue's Passage.
Right.
I mean, if you never use its ability because it just ends up costing too much, then it's a land that taps for colorless. As long as you don't need the color, then you're not losing out. So I have no problem with that. With Rogue's Passage in a deck where you definitely want, where you want a specific creature or a group of creatures to get through and do combat damage, and you definitely want that with this deck.
A big part of this deck too is treasure, because that's what pirates do, is treasure.
Yeah.
That definitely became more apparent once Commander Legends came out and we had things like Breaches and Malcolm. Malcolm is a powerhouse.
Let's talk about Malcolm, because I think it's safe to say that Malcolm is like the unexpected joy that came out of this deck, because neither you nor I was really aware of exactly what he could do, and then you had one game where I swear nobody blocked him, and he just kept the value just kept pouring out.
I got Malcolm out, I think, turn 2. He's 2 and a 1. He's 2 and a blue, I believe.
2 and a blue, yeah.
I've
got him open here. It's Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator for 2 and a blue. He's a legendary creature, a Siren Pirate. Malcolm has flying. Whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage to your opponents, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. So, swing at 2 opponents. As long as they both take combat damage, you get 2 treasures. Malcolm has partner as well. So, if you really like the idea, you could try and run him as your commander or as one of the commanders in your deck.
And the great thing too about Malcolm is that he says whenever any pirate does does any damage to a player, it doesn't have to be combat damage. So that in itself is busted. But there's not really many ways in this deck for my pirates to do damage, other than, I believe, Lightning Rig Crew.
If you want to jump through hoops, that you can make that happen. But practically speaking, given what Beckett Brass already wants,
Yeah.
It sort of falls in line. Having said that, I know that you run Malcolm in other decks that don't have pirates. So Malcolm essentially then reads, whenever Malcolm deals damage to your opponent, you get a treasure token. So basically he's a 2/2 flyer that swings and gets you a treasure if he hits. And most of the time he's going to, because a 2/2 for 3 mana, usually you can get out early enough and, score some easy hits.
Yeah. So, like, I would say, if you look at any card in this deck, it is either a pirate, says something about pirates, or says something about X can't be blocked. That said, let's talk about treasures. So obviously we have Malcolm. Malcolm, powerhouse. But now that, my play group at least has seen the things he can do, I need other ways to make treasures. I have Revel in Riches in this deck. I've never won off of it from this deck.
Okay.
It's not there really as the win con. That
it's there to get you treasure.
It's there to get me treasure so that I can fix my mana, so that I can get out more things.
And it's funny, as someone else who runs Revel in Riches, it's almost beneficial to make sure that your treasure count doesn't get close.
Oh, yeah.
It's, it's easy to look at your mana and say, you tap your lands first and then save your treasure, because they just accumulate. But when you've got Revel in Riches out and people start looking at your treasure count, you want to start burning that first.
It's funny because I've definitely had games where I've had like 8 treasure and it's starting to come back around, and I'm like, I have to use this, otherwise people are going to start targeting me. I've only won off of this card once. Didn't feel great. It felt fine. I was like, cool, I won. Achievement unlocked.
Yes.
That's about it.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
I was like, all right, cool. Game over, I guess. So there's that. It makes treasures when opponents' creatures die. Captain Lannery Storm. She makes a treasure when she attacks, and you have more of like a benefit from when you use your treasures, especially for combat tricks.
Right.
So like she gets +1/+0 whenever you sacrifice a treasure. So if you're using them for combat tricks, great, she gets bigger. Eye Plunderers, again, benefits from having treasure and makes treasure. So that is kind of a big deal in this deck, is just the not only to make treasure, but have benefits that aren't Revel in Riches from those treasure. Prying Blade. Prying Blade is probably one of my favorite artifacts in this deck, or favorite equipments really overall. I think they kind of one-upped it with Gold Vein Pick in the new Zendikar set. But basically, it's whenever equipped creature deals combat damage, player create a treasure. It's great, especially if the thing has double strike. But if the thing has unblockable for whatever reason, you're getting a treasure no matter what. I've got Storm the Vault in here because Ixalan, if any of you remember, has a lot of those transform artifacts, enchantments, etc. that, you meet a threshold, it turns into a much more expensive card. So Storm the Vault, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 5 or more artifacts, doesn't have to be treasures, transform Storm the Vault, which turns into Vault of Catlacan, which is essentially what's the artifact? Tap land. Tap for as many artifacts.
Academy.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taps for blue for each artifact you control, which is pretty great if
you have some treasure.
If you already have treasure. So you tap it for blue, for as many treasures as you have, and then you can also use the treasures on top of that.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. It's great. It's also a lightning rod. People will see it and be like, that's got to go before it transforms. But very hard to do with enchantments. Well, yeah, there's a lot of overlap between this deck and my Galazeth Prismari deck, if only because I realized, if the colors and because they both want to just create as much treasure as possible to then use it for whatever benefit.
Right.
So that's a big part of my treasure making thing. But I also I think this is the one deck that I run the most mana rocks in anyway. In addition to the treasure making, I mean, I've got all the signets. I've got Commander Sphere, Soul Ring, yada yada yada. There are many pirates. Let me quickly find all the non-pirates.
I was actually going to ask about a couple of these. Why Keeper of the Keys?
Keeper of Keys. Keeper of Keys says when he enters the battlefield, you become a monarch.
Yes.
At the beginning of your upkeep, if you are the monarch, your creatures cannot be blocked.
Right.
So if you've got any number of pirates out.
So this is the tie for Beckett.
This is
Okay.
I've got some things that are pretty sweet, that some of them honestly were much more powerful than I thought they would be, and honestly they have any right to be. Keeper of Keys, 5 mana, 4/4. It's great.
Yeah.
It's fine. Very typical commander card.
Yeah.
Stormfleet Sprinter, 1 blue and a red for a 2/2 haste. Stormfleet Sprinter can't be blocked. Normally, look the other way with this card. It's not excellent. It is a card that does things, but more importantly, it's a pirate that gets through combat damage. Slippery Scoundrel is essentially the same thing, but with less restriction on cost. So it's 2 and a blue, 2/2 with Ascend. And as long as you have City's Blessing, Slippery Scoundrel is hexproof and can't be blocked.
Right, and anybody who's running treasures,
right,
Ascend is not an issue.
So between mana rocks and land, honestly, probably should be running more land in this deck, but I didn't realize that until I put it on Architect.
You start counting it and realize you've only got 35, and you should have 40.
So Slippery Scoundrel, pretty easy to get out early. And then as soon as you hit that 10 permanent mark, it becomes hexproof and can't be blocked. So it's hard for people to deal with and can't be blocked.
Right.
So those two together count for 2 pirates that can get through easily.
Yeah.
The better thing about those is, especially Stormfleet Sprinter, nobody's going to waste their removal on a 2/2. I mean, generally. Right. So, even the fact that it doesn't have hexproof compared to the Slippery Scoundrel, it's not a big deal,
right? Because
nobody's going to take care of it until it's hit people a bunch of times and you start stealing things,
right?
And then at that point, you've probably stolen some pretty big things that they want to get back, so they're going to use their removal on those things, or unfortunately, your commander,
right?
And then I also have Protean Raider, which is 1 blue and a red for a 2/2. A lot of 3 mana 2/2s in this deck.
Yep.
But it says raid. If you have attacked with a creature this turn, you may have Protean Raider enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield.
Oh, nice.
So not just yours.
Right, and it doesn't have to do combat damage, it just has to attack.
Yes, something has to have attacked. You put this out on your second main phase. I really liked raid as a mechanic because it encouraged you to not do anything until your second main phase. Granted, this isn't going to help too much with, if you make a Stormfleet Sprinter with Protean Raider, you're not going to be able to attack with it right away. But it does set you up for future turns. It sets you up with the best creature on the battlefield that doesn't have any sort of hexproof type thing.
Well, I mean, the nice part is that, just thinking about commander creatures. So this thing is going to be a Sun Titan. It's going to be a, and Yeah, and it enters the battlefield as a copy of the card. So, because a lot of the cards out there now get their benefit because they've got an enter the battlefield trigger. Well, this thing can trigger that. So, even if you're not really thrilled about the actual creature, maybe it's just the enter the battlefield trigger that you're looking for. So, so that makes a nice little bonus.
It's a nice little creature that I feel like gets overlooked.
Yeah.
The great thing too with Brass is that she doesn't have to be on the battlefield when combat damage happens. It just triggers at the end of or at the beginning of your end step. So
okay, so you can play her on.
So you can play her on the second main phase. I've done this so many times where I've gotten through with the 3 creatures for 3 damage,
right.
And because nobody generally you're worrying about enough during somebody else's turn anyway that they're just gonna let it through. It's it's 3 damage, but then you put Brass out, go to your end step, steal something from them because it's Pirate's life. Let's see some other good treasures. I mean, Brass's Bounty, super on theme, obviously.
Yeah.
Pirate's Prize is fine. Draw 2 cards, create a treasure. I mean, it's card draw, which is good. Something that's a little bit more... where did it go? I just had it.
While you're looking, as far as cards on theme, you've already mentioned Brass's Bounty, which was the big one that I really... That I'm always aware of with this deck. The other one, which catches a lot of people by surprise, and I love it, Hornswoggle.
I love Hornswoggle.
Now, I'm rarely the guy who sits there and says, I love a counterspell. But for 3 mana, Hornswoggle is counter target creature spell. You create a colorless treasure artifact token.
Yeah.
So,
So, I don't play a lot of counters,
right.
But I have a handful because I was new to Magic. I didn't know how bad countering things felt, which feels silly, but that's how I play. I'm slowly starting to get back into this, or getting into the idea of countering things for the good of the game. I'm
into countering things for the good of me.
Yeah. So I would agree generally. I tried to keep my counter spells on theme. So first up, we've got Counterspell. Not thematic, but solid card.
Yeah.
But then every other one, I believe I've got 4 others. I've got, as you said, Hornswoggle. Or for 2 more mana, for 3 and 2 blue, I've got Spell Swindle. Also very thematic. Does the same exact thing as Hornswoggle, but it creates X treasures instead, where X is the countered spell's converted mana cost, which is pretty great. Right. Even if the big spell that you're countering isn't doing a lot, like maybe it's whatever.
Simply put, you're spending 5 mana. And if you're getting nothing back, now that can be worth it if the other spell is that bad. But honestly, if you're holding 5 mana up, you really want more than just counter the spell. You want something else, and Spell Swindle gives that to you.
At worst, you're probably getting 2 treasure out of it.
Right.
And also saving your thing from being destroyed.
Yeah. There's a third one, though.
The third one is... Desertion, which I mean, if
that works on theme so nicely. It's just
it works on theme, obviously, flavor wise from the name of the card.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Desertion is 3 blue, counter target spell. If an artifact or creature spell is countered this way, put that card onto the battlefield under your control instead of into its owner's graveyard. Amazing card. This is the card that made me rethink counters in general, because
well, this is exactly the kind of counter I want to play.
Right.
The difficulty, obviously, with Desertion and to some sense Spell Swindle is that they do cost 5. So this is not something you want to keep up.
Right.
For numerous turns. You've got to hit it at the right time.
Super easy to keep up in this deck.
With all the treasure,
Yeah, all the treasure, a lot of the the pirates are very low costed.
Yeah.
So you can kind of struggle your way through the game and still come out on top. Desertion, obviously flavor-wise, is great because of the name, but you're also stealing something. That is the biggest issue I have with this. I love the card, and I love what it does for the deck, but there have been one too many times, one is one too many times, that I've countered, say, Buzzbark. Not great. Well, for one, Buzzbark comes in and it just kind of...
And it doesn't really do anything when it comes in.
But that led me to realizing I don't like countering people's commanders. And so I've kind of like made that a soft rule for myself, is that unless it is about to end the game, I'm going to generally look the other way when it comes to countering people's commanders.
Right.
It makes it unfun.
Yeah.
I hate it when my commander's countered, because generally I'm getting the commander out there at a specific time for a specific purpose.
Right.
Obviously, there are exceptions to that rule for me.
There are always going to be exceptions, but what other people are trying to do generally involves their commander. And if you're, if it's a straight counter, then all you've done is say, not this turn, try again next turn. It's going to cost, I'm going to make it a little harder. But a card like Desertion, okay, well now it's mine. Now, if you want it, you have to get it back, and that makes things a little bit tougher.
Let's cut to break real quick, and when we come back, I want to talk about some highlights and some disappointing cards.
I've got a couple of questions that I want to throw in there as well.
So we'll be right back. Have a stab at this one. Be right back.
This episode of Temple of the False Pod be brought to you by Brass's Bounty. For when you be needing the treasures to cast all your big spells, Brass's Bounty.
Yar! Ahoy! And now, back to you!
What is a pirate's favorite letter?
R.
You'd be thinking it'd be R. But every pirate's true love will always be the C.
Oh, I got a good one. What is a pirate's favorite letter?
R.
No! It's actually a P. Because it's like an R, but it's got one leg.
Oh, man.
And now back to ye scoundrels.
Hey,
we're
welcome back. Hope that left you in stitches. So, should I start with cards that were disappointing, or start with cards that were surprising?
Let's talk about the cards that were surprising, because you've got so many cards on theme.
Yeah.
And I know that some of them were put in there because they were on theme, and then I'm guessing you discovered that they were better than you expected them to be.
Oh, definitely. Cards that overperformed because this is so heavy on pirates that I always forget to activate. The Lightning Rig Crew. It's a 2 and a red for a 0/5. Tap Lightning Rig Crew deals 1 damage to each opponent.
Right.
Each opponent.
Yeah.
Amazing. Whenever you cast a pirate spell, untap Lightning Rig Crew. This with Malcolm, every time you tap this for damage, you get 3 treasures.
Okay.
It's amazing. And if you use those 3 treasures to play another pirate, you get to untap it and do the damage again.
Yeah.
You just get a lot of free things. But I always forget. to
untap.
I play the pirate, and then I'm like, oh, I should have done that before. Anyway, just a silly little My mind works too fast. That sounds braggy, but it's not. It's ADHD. I don't know what you want. Card that has overperformed, if you can get it out at the right time, is Dead Man's Chest. 1 and a black. Enchant creature an opponent controls. When enchanted creature dies, exile cards equal to its power from the top of its owner's library. You may cast non-land cards from among them for as long as they remained exiled. And you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast those spells. Obviously, works best if you have any sort of targeted removal, or I guess any removal, once with that in hand as well. So you can do the 1-2 punch. Or, if somebody's got a huge something that everybody's going to be gunning for.
Right.
Do that, and then you get to exile a ton of cards.
Yeah.
It's just fun. It's just fun. It's on theme for the stealing things. It's on theme for, obviously, pirates. Real quick, Siren's Ruse. It flickers a thing. If it's a pirate, you draw a card.
Okay.
Overlooked this card when I originally put it in. I've used it a few times, especially to get around that targeted removal. It's great. And then the last card that has really been a surprise was River's Rebuke.
Okay.
4 blue, return all non-land permanents target player controls to their owner's hand. It's like Cyclonic Rift, but it's for one person, and it's sorcery. So it's not super powerful, but it sits in that nice sweet spot that if somebody's really taken off with the game, hit them with this. I played it probably a month or two ago, and since then I've noticed an uptick of it in our playgroup because it does the commander thing. It does the big play.
Right.
And it's beautiful.
So I had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Angrath. He's not in the deck anymore.
Yeah, I don't know why.
What happened?
I don't know. I don't know if I just didn't have it. I don't know if the original list was just a list I was going to end up buying and then didn't buy him because he's almost $5. And at the time I was like, $5 for a card? That's so much. I'm still kind of that way, but I feel like he kind of belongs there. He's a pirate.
Right. I don't think the deck is hurting without him.
No.
But, yeah, I was just curious.
He does some cool things. There are some cards in this deck that I could definitely pull out that I could easily put him in for.
The other one I wanted to ask about that's not in the deck anymore is Coastal Piracy.
Also a card that I think I just didn't have.
Okay. I wasn't sure if just the card draw just wasn't going to be there as often as you thought it would be.
I think after the first couple times I played it, you asked me if I had Coastal Piracy in there. And I didn't. So I think I went home, put it on my list, and then just never got around to buying it.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
But definitely, this deck definitely needs the card draw, and that would be a way to get easy card draw.
Right. And speaking of card draw, is that why Curse of Verbosity is in there?
Yeah.
Because it seems like it kind of follows the theme, but not.
Yeah.
It wasn't blatant.
It was definitely easy card draw. I think I just had one lying around, and on top of it, I think the biggest thing was pirate, like sailors are known for their swearing. It fits in that way thematically but Coastal Piracy and Angrath are definitely two cards that I would put in to replace any of these cards that have underperformed. Starting with Vandalblast. Vandalblast is it's a commander staple. It's a classic commander.
You run Vandalblast.
Yeah. I don't know why I put it on this list. I think other than I noticed that it just doesn't get there enough, and I think that's going to change now that treasure is a thing now more than ever.
Right.
So I'll probably keep it in at least for a while just because it is a classic commander card. also it's thematic in the way that it's like, oh, vandals and pirates,
Right.
hooligans. Entrancing Melody is probably one of my biggest underperformers. It's X blue for sorcery. Gain control of target creature with converted mana cost X. I think whenever I have this in hand, I'm always waiting for that huge token so that I can just take it for 2.
Right.
And so, like, I'm always waiting out that value and never actually pulling the trigger on getting something useful.
Getting something that's there now.
Yeah. So I think this less underperforms, and and it would perform appropriately if I just bothered to play it.
So this is just you underperforming.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, like I said, this deck is so, like, it's so the thing that people look at and go, oh, pirates, and then they leave you alone for a while until you start doing things. And not that this deck does a lot of powerful things, but I mean, we played a game. I played this deck against Benny Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, I did not explain what this deck was. He thought it was big bad pirates, which is fair.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of pirate decks out there that do a lot of nasty things.
Right.
Granted, we played this over Spell Table for a deck that steals things. Maybe I shouldn't have played this, but whatever. It was intimidating to him. Took me out.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. It was great. Good game. But otherwise, this deck does a thing sometimes. And I think the biggest underperformer for this deck is Crafty Cutpurse. It's 3 and a blue flash 2/2 human pirate. When Crafty Cutpurse enters the battlefield, each token that would be created under an opponent's control this turn is created under your control instead. It is the same problem I have with Entrancing Melody. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. It's in my hand until somebody does something worth 4 mana.
Well, yeah, you're waiting for somebody else to play Brass's Bounty, and that's just not going to happen.
Brass's Bounty or Rite of Replication or like honestly anything. The great thing too is that once you put this on the stack after the person does the big thing with the tokens, and then if they can't do anything more with tokens for the rest of that turn,
right?
Because it is until end of turn, and so like I've definitely had a game. I've had this go off exactly once. I played it. I don't remember what the other card was that was being played.
Yeah.
Got some of their tokens, and then they continued to try to make tokens, which I just ended up making, and they were like, whoa, can we back this up? I don't want to do that. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. But it does shut off the rest of their turn if they're planning on doing tokens.
It makes me want to run it in with a Tombstone Stairwell deck.
Oh!
Because and everybody has, that's upkeep, so it's hard to get it in. To get this off before, but
yeah, you do it in response to the trigger.
Yeah, in response to the trigger. So
and you get it once,
right?
But like that should be enough.
But that should be enough. The other thing with this is to use it less as a way for you to get something awesome or to get a lot of stuff, but as a way to stop them from doing anything that turn. Yeah. So like I was thinking, you play it in response to the Avenger of Zendikar. Which means you get a bunch of plants that don't get bigger until your turn when you can actually play a land. But it also means that they're now not going to do anything else. Because the reason, they played Avenger because they had a way to put 2 lands into play this turn, or 3 lands, or however many. They probably had a way to give their creatures haste or something along that line, and you just shut that down for a turn. So
yeah, it's great.
I think that's what you're heading for, but I agree with what you're saying. It's 4 mana.
It's a good card that it underperforms because you're always waiting for something bigger, or you're just waiting for literally anything at all.
Right.
I've definitely had it in hands, and then nobody does anything to make tokens at all, and I'm like, well, probably coming out. And this deck is full of a lot of like basic pirates.
Right.
Well, it's a pirate theme. Yeah. I don't think there are any vanilla pirates in this deck, even though there's probably a handful.
Yeah.
Total. But you always want your creatures to do something more than just be a body. So, I have I don't know. There's some pirates in this deck that did some surprising things with their abilities, but there are 2 pirates that for their cost and just generally they're just too weak. First being Stormfleet Arsonist. Stormfleet Arsonist is a 4/4 for 4 and a red. It's got raid, and it says whenever Stormfleet Arsonist enters the battlefield, if you attack with a creature this turn, target opponent sacrifices a permanent. It doesn't say non-land, so that's nice. So if all they have left is land, they have to sacrifice a land. But you're getting this out, for 5 mana after you attacked. It's nice that you don't have to target the opponent that you attacked, but they get to choose what they sacrifice. It's just going to be it's going to be underwhelming. It's never going to be 5 mana worth.
Honestly, this is one of those ones where you wish it did say non-land.
Yeah.
But since they're choosing, they get to pick anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to hit you're going to hit a treasure. That's what is going to happen. Yeah. And it's just a big old wet fart. It's nothing. And overall, it's not. It's a 4/4. That's all it is.
Right.
It's a 4/4 for 5. That is. It's got relevant creature type, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's almost definitely coming out at some point.
Right.
Probably for a land. I only have 35 in here.
There we go.
Or Angrath. And the other one, which is a real disappointment. The other one is a Direfleet Poisoner. It's a 2/2 for a 1 and a black. So that's nice. It's got flash, which is nice. So it's a bear with multiple upsides. So it's a 2/2 for 2, human pirate, flash, death touch. So it's relevant creature type. It's got death touch. It's all great. Sure, whatever. You play it at the end of, but it's that value again. And I am sure this is just me being a player that is just trying to get the most out of my cards. When Direfleet Poisoner enters the battlefield, target attacking pirate you control gets +1/+1 and death touch until end of turn. So this is a fancy combat trick. You're giving something that's blocked death touch. The +1/+1 is hopefully maybe they did hopefully the blockers did math just enough so that it does survive, but overall you're just kind of trying to fool them into blocking something and then killing their thing. And on the other end, you're also now you've got a death touch blocker, which is fine, but overall it's going to be you're going to be playing it at the end of somebody else's turn. It's fine. It's disappointing. I'm sad about it. But yeah, to kind of come back to the second ability, the deck is built around having pirates, preferably a lot of pirates, so that second ability does happen more than if you were to just rely on evasion. But this deck is slow, and will generally have, at best, 6 pirates.
Right.
That some of them don't have evasion. I've got a few things that create Pirates of Menace, which is great. Some of them will get through. Sometimes you'll steal some stuff. Sometimes I had a game once where I played this and I stole a bunch of vampire stuff. I think I stole an Olivia from you.
I think so.
And then I stole a Door of Destiny from somebody else where they had already named vampire. And then I started stealing stuff with Olivia, and it turned from a pirate deck into a vampire deck. It was beautiful. It was a strange day.
It was not beautiful. It was a very sad day. sad day.
But yeah, I mean it's fine for a deck. It's fun. It's laid back. It is the highest density of counters I have, but they're all on theme.
It's
for
on
the
theme.
most part.
That's the key to me.
I mean, that's why I love this deck so much, and I don't think I'm ever gonna take it apart. Like, this is like the deck that I could see myself never taking apart because
It's not your deck.
Well, for one, yeah, it's not my deck, but also it's so on theme that sure, I'll update it as they release more pirates, but it's never coming apart. And that's my deck tail. Ooh.
Well, there we go.
Like DuckTales, but
There you go. Your deck tail.
Deck tail. Ooh. Anyway, that I think that's
going to wrap us for the night.
wrap us for the night. We're gonna go play some Magic, and we'll see you next week. We're at Temple of False God. That felt so clunky. Let me try that again. We're gonna go even clunkier. Great.
You gotta look over your shoulder. Josh is killing himself.
Let's see if I win a game tonight, because this is a mess. Have a great night. We're Temple of the False God, where our decks are not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. I'm Andy.
I'm Bruce.
Have a great night. Go play some Magic, and may your 5th land be the Temple.
Bye.
Wait, before you go, I just wanted to say thank you for listening. You can reach out to us via email at falsepodmtg@gmail.com or on Twitter at falsepodmtg. Bruce is at ManaBurned, and I'm at Andy Weekend, though you'll definitely notice I use the podcast Twitter far more often. Now that we've got you here, make sure you subscribe, like, rate us on whatever podcast platform you use. It helps us out. It gets us more reach. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Like a video there. Leave some comments for more casual enjoyment. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with some more timeless discussions about all things casual. So come hang out, and may your 5th land be the Temple. Bye-bye. Should I do my best, Bruce? Bye!